The trade deadline is over, and the question is, are the Guardians ready to make a run in the playoffs? Did they do enough at the deadline? Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show today. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use the code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. For those who do not know me out there, I am Jeff Ellis, one of the co-hosts of Locked On Guardians. I was one of the original hosts of any podcast here on the baseball side of things. For that, I was a lead draft and prospect analyst at Scouting 24/7. The number 8 was a ton of things yesterday, all of them right. Lane Thomas, Albert Bell, prospect rankings. Everyone out there did super well with that. And today I am your 60th favorite writer for many a Cleveland sports blog that has, ever, will, and may in the future exist.
Oh, you updated your rankings. I'm glad somebody did, Jeff. I am Justin Ladd. I'm the other co-host of this podcast. I've been covering Guardians prospects since 2007, so I've seen a lot of them, and some have whelmed me, some have overwhelmed me, some I would have traded, some I wouldn't have traded. And you might have read me write about those prospects at Guardians Baseball Insider, News Herald, The Morning Journal, among many other outlets. Trade deadline is over. We'll get into how the Guardians did. We'll talk about the Alex Cobb deal and what we did like, what we didn't like. We'll talk about the Guardians did enough, and we'll talk about if this team is ready to make a postseason run. And I think we also get into, is this the final version of the team you're going to see the rest of the year? Because I think there are still, you can't make trades at this point, unless there's an Angels-like team out there that just goes ahead and waves a bunch of players in August or September or August like they did a year ago. There's no external players coming, but are there some internal additions that can still help this team? We will also talk about that. Let's start at Alex Cobb. So Alex Cobb is coming to Cleveland for Jacob Bresnahan and a player to be named later. So can't really fully evaluate this trade yet. I know people sometimes don't love when we bring up our interactions on Twitter saying just forget these people, and that's fine. I don't care. But I'm just going to point out here that you and I both really like Jacob Bresnahan. And
we're probably the high men on him.
Yeah, outside of his own signing scout,
yeah.
Who
if we were the
friendly with,
if we were the low men on Clemmy, we are the high men on Bresnahan. I think, everyone loves when I interrupt, but my quick interruption here is Clemmy has a higher ceiling, and that's why he was higher rated. But I liked Bresnahan actually better as a prospect. And if you're like, who has the higher floor, it was Bresnahan. So, and he's a grower. He's one guy who's. I'm not going to complete that line. No, but he's had great growth throughout his career. He's shown a lot over the last year, and now I'll be quiet.
Yeah, late physical developer. The Guardians gave a lot of money to on day 3 of the draft to get him away from Oregon.
Equivalent of a 5th rounder. So
projectable arm who's already throwing in the low 90s. It should add more velocity, good slider, very deceptive delivery, strike thrower, and. Look, I understand the kid's 19 and he's far away. That's not the thing that I'm concerned about. My concern was about the return in terms of what you're getting back. If you listen to this podcast for at least the last week or two, if not longer, you've heard me say all season, there's no prospect off limits. Like, I really didn't want to trade Ralphie, and of course they didn't. And obviously you can't trade Travis Bazzana if you wanted to because it's not within the rules right now. But I said there's no prospect off limits, even Chase Slaughter, Jason Churio, whoever, because it all depends on what you're getting back. And for me, I know people came to me all day pointing out, well, this guy's so far away. You don't even know who he is. He's a prospect. We have heard from multiple people that we trust, and we've seen some video. We've seen some data that we like to know enough that the arrow is pointing up on Bresnahan, and he has a lot of projection ahead of him. And he's already a strike thrower. We really liked him. And we don't even know the player to be named later yet. So, like, if there's a chance that this trade looks even uglier if there's a really good name involved, we'll see who that is. Yeah, I had no problem. No matter who they trade, who the player to be named later is Bresnahan, I have no problem with that. It's that you got back a guy who hasn't pitched this year, who's 36, who is coming off his second hip surgery. He's an all-star year ago. Alex Cobb was an all-star year ago. And Jeff and I don't want to steal his thunder. We had the conversation off air that the potential of Alex Cobb, who he can be when he's healthy, is like the third best starter that got traded during the deadline. Because let's be honest, the trading deadline stunk. It stunk. There was not a lot of good moves made. It was a very underwhelming trading deadline.
There's a lot that happened.
Yeah, a lot that happened that was just very like a lot of role players, a lot of middle relief guys. Nobody like the best player traded was Randy Arozarena and like Tanner Scott. It wasn't a big trade deadline. And Jeff said, you know, Cobb is probably the third most talented pitcher traded. You had Jack Flaherty went to the Dodgers for a pretty good return, not great. There were some medical concerns apparently, which is weird. And then who do we say the second best arm was for sure?
Zach F. No, because I wasn't talking about today. So if it wasn't Eflin, it wasn't Flaherty. Why am I having a brain cramp? Oh, Eric Fetty.
Eric Fetty is the second best arm, and then we'll say Eflin was the third best arm, and then we'll say Cobb was the fourth best arm that got moved this month.
In terms of recent performance.
Yeah, I mean, last year the numbers were good. If you get 2023 Cobb back, it's a great trade, no doubt.
Yeah.
And that's what this trade hinges on. But I just have a concern that the Guardians needed much more than that. You've got Bybee looks fine. Williams looks like he is moving into high gear, which is great. Lively has earned, his stay in this rotation. What he's been doing, he's earned his money.
In the rotation. He's earned. He's beyond stay in the rotation. Yes. I mean, he's earned at this point. It's 2/3 of the way through the year, and he's still pitching this well. Like he's earned to be your number 3 starter in the postseason.
He has. I think the thing I wanted was to bump him to the 4th spot. I think you wanted a guy that was behind Bybee and Williams, and Cobb could be that guy. He could. I mean, I would have liked more certainty. Like,
I'm not even sure Fetty is that guy. I'm not sure Fetty has been better in Lively this year. Like,
they're even-ish.
But that's my point. It's like, then go with the guy who you're having great success with.
Let's point this out too. The White Sox crapped the bed at the trade deadline. They did a horrible job. They traded Eloy Jimenez to dump his salary. They didn't trade Crochet. They didn't get much for Fetty. Truthfully, they didn't get much.
Didn't get a ton for Banks either.
Relief, whatever. Let's
but Relief was going for huge amounts. Relief was going for King's ransoms and them in Oakland. And
you and I both said we didn't flinch at the deal for Thomas because we weren't that high on Clemmy. Yeah. Ramirez has a great ceiling too, but we felt like the odds of him getting there were long and he's far away. And then Tana was not going to play here and they didn't give him a chance. So it says a lot. And on one hand, you could say, trust the Guardians front office when they trade a pitcher away because they don't usually trade good pitchers away. It hasn't really happened. Like, what's the last pitcher they trade? I mean, Tobias Myers has revived his career since leaving. Who knows what happened there? I know why the Caminero trade or the Caminero piece happened. We know that. I don't know what happened with Myers, but they have not traded away.
Really good at development is what happened. Milwaukee has fixed a lot of guys. Credit what you do.
Yeah. So on one hand, I think you can trust the front office, and I can be okay with Bresnahan being 4 years away from being a guy. I still think he's a guy. I do. I just think that I would have rather tried to get some more stability. I guess the Guardians are playing more high risk here. There's a chance that Cobb comes back and he is better than Lively, and then boom, it's a great trade no matter what. And I'll eat my words. If
there's
Cobb
a universe, he's the best pitcher at the deadline. There is a universe. He's the best pitcher at the deadline.
If he's a big factor in this team going deep in the playoffs, going to the World Series, winning a World Series, you and I will both be thrilled to be like, you know what? Well, no matter what Bresnahan does, doesn't matter because Cobb fulfilled his end of the deal. I just think that where the Guardians rotation has been this year, you could have used somebody, and I don't know if the guy existed because the deadline stunk, but I really was hoping for someone who would bring some stability, and Cobb is a very big unknown. That's why I don't like trading Bresnahan. We both like Bresnahan. I just wish they would have used him to bring somebody in that brought a little more certainty to the rotation.
I don't think there was any certainty. I don't think there was any certainty. Perhaps not. That's the thing.
Talk about the other trades.
Yeah, it's like for me, Bresnahan was 24th on my board. For those who are curious, Clemmy was 18th, so they were within striking distance. Because we'd seen growth with Bresnahan in that short period. And
people that know more than us like him too. People that have seen him, like him.
A lot of people really like him. What it came down to, and if you saw my Twitter, it was kind of a little bit all over the place. But it's like at first, it's like crap. I like Bresnahan, and a player to be named later is always scary. It's a little less scary when it's player to be named later or cash, but we know this is going to be a player. But it wasn't. So first reaction is like it feels like a lot for Cobb, but at the same time, then you have to take a step back and look and be like, yeah, every starting pitcher is going for a lot. Trevor Rogers went for a lot, and he hasn't been good in multiple years. pitching, starting pitching, and relief pitching outside of Lucas Ursig, for whatever reason, who's maybe the third best reliever who got traded, cost a lot. And with Cobb, again, he has his performance, his K rate was down a little bit a year ago, but it's like if he's healthy, you're not getting him for Bresnahan. You're not getting him for the 24th rated prospect. You're giving
That's
up.
Fair.
You're probably giving up Cantillo and more. So
they might not even trade him.
No, I mean, he's a free agent to be, and they're sputtering. They trade other pieces, so I bet they still look to
They added Mark Canha. They're trying to go for it because they're getting some pitchers off the IL. But there's a chance they could have kept him.
Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, though, it's one of those things where they looked at him. Paul Blackburn is someone who comes up a lot. He's a fifth starter. He's at least Cobb gives you a potential at a 3 or 4. The
potential at nothing though. That's the other side of that is potential. But
there wasn't much. Like everyone's gonna talk about Flattery. The Yankees pulled out of the deal because the medicals were bad. That's a scary thing, and he has had medical issues before. There just was, Zach Eflin's
never in on that for what it's worth. And Zach, never in on Flaherty.
No, but Zach Eflin's in cleared a lot decline. There was not a lot to get, and the more I looked at the basket of pitchers, I was like, okay, a good trade should kind of hurt. This one did kind of hurt, but again, they added so much young talent that it softens the blow to a degree, and they got a guy who, it's a risk reward pick, but for this team, you want more reward than low cost certainty. Like I'd rather have him than Blackburn. That's the thing. I'd rather have more of a risk ceiling with that payoff than just, hey, this is a guy who's a fifth starter for the rest of the year and then is worthless in the postseason.
So you're happier with more risk reward than you were with stability for the trade.
Yes, because you want higher ceiling.
I think you even said this. I think it's fair to point out that you can think that maybe they gave up quite a bit for a big risk. So you can also say it's okay to take, it's a decent risk and it could pay off in a big way for them. But it's also fair to say that you don't like who they gave up for him because you think the guy has a good future ahead of him. I think it's fair. And this is what I think Twitter has done to a lot of people too. It's not always black or white. You can feel multiple ways about a certain thing. There's probably not really a right opinion here. You can feel multiple ways. But again, if Cobb pitches great and the Guardians go deep in the playoffs or, somehow they win the World Series. I've never seen a rotation like this win a World Series, but we'll see. And no matter what Bresnahan does, it doesn't matter because he'll have fulfilled the end and that all works out. It did just fine with the Miller trade. And again, I know someone was mad. We keep bringing it up and I'm like, I was upset about that when it happened. And this is not that big, but we'll see. I think you can have multiple viewpoints on this and not have to feel just black or white one way. All right. Are the Guardians a better team today than they were yesterday? And is this the final version of the roster that we are going to see the rest of the season? We're going to get into that next.
But first, I'm going to go over to PrizePicks and look at some of the players for tomorrow. They don't have any pitcher data up right now. It is only they just put it up. Pitcher strikeouts tomorrow. Luis Severino. Remember we thought that Guardians could acquire him. 4.5 strikeouts versus the Twins. I kind of like more on that. That's when I'm looking at. Pablo Lopez 6 versus the Mets. I'm going to skip on that one. Freddie Peralta 6.5 versus Atlanta. Atlanta's been scuffling, so I'm going to weirdly take the more. And Chris Sale 7.5 pitcher strikeouts versus Milwaukee. Sales pitched really well this year. I think I would also take more there, but I don't feel very confident on that one. If you are more confident, if you have good inside information, if you're just better at this than I am, which is very likely, you should go to PrizePicks for yourself. Download the app, go to the website, use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB, and they're going to give you a first deposit match up to $100. That's free money. Again, go to PrizePicks.com or use the app. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB, all lowercase, all one word, for a first deposit match up to $100. Get some free money. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Guardians are off on Wednesday, weird Wednesday off day, but Thursday they're back in action at home. They will welcome Baltimore to town. That should be a really interesting series. You can check out all the action on your SiriusXM app. Just search Guardians for that broadcast when the Orioles come to town on Thursday. All right, I guess simple question here. It's really yes or no. Are the Guardians a better team on July 31st than they were on July 30th or July 29th for that matter?
Yes. I mean, I don't think there's a doubt, even with Cobb not being a part of the team. One of those things that a lot of people like, why did they trade for right-handed Brennan? Will Brennan is in AAA because he never nailed down his spot, or why did they trade for Geyer or Luplow or all Raybird? Those guys couldn't hit righties as well as Lane Thomas. Lane Thomas was, and one of the other things I want to address, I got a lot of questions because why is, Terry Pluto said Lane Thomas is a great defender. He was a Gold Glove finalist. He was a Gold Glove finalist because he threw a lot of guys out, and throughout history, guys who throw out a ton of
that's good defense.
It is. It's value, but his range is pretty poor, and that's why he's not a center fielder. And that's also, if his best asset is his arm, you want him in right, not center, because it's the lack of range. In center, you want range. You don't care about arm as much. You can have a terrible arm in center, but you want a lot of range. He doesn't have a lot of range. Doesn't take good routes. Doesn't get good reads, but his arm is super strong. So it's like Sin-Chu Chu. It's like Michael Brantley. Those guys both did not have great metrics as defenders, but they had cannon arms. Though Chu was not very accurate. Brantley was not as strong of, maybe not a cannon, but he was so great with his accuracy and anything cut off, man. So just to kind of go back and address some of the things people have brought up, but what he is versus right-handers this year, I believe, is like an 86, which is down from a year ago where he was a 90, and then. He was also hurt, which did it, but that 86 is 2 points below the overall pace for the position. So he is the everyday right fielder. He's not a platoon bat. He has been as good as a right-handed bat as the rest of the team has been in right field. And that's even with him having a massive knee injury that ruined the start of the year for him and caused, his defensive metrics to suffer and his offensive performance. And against lefties, again, he's Bryce Harper out there this year against lefties. So he's a no doubt upgrade. I'm just going to go back and throw the stat again. He played every single day and had a runs created plus over 105 last year. He's on that pace this year. The last Cleveland outfielder to do that, Michael Brantley. His team has not had that type of consistent production, and he's playing every day. So stop with the platoon stuff. That's junk. Just stop.
And he runs. I mean, he's been thrown out a lot as a base stealer. We'll see.
I'm interested to see clean up. How much Cleveland can work with him on some of the speed, the defense, getting him to pull more.
I'm interested to see how much he even runs because he's hitting in front of. He's probably going to hit in front of Jose, and that's you want to be careful how much you're running in front of him, as evidenced by Tuesday when the Guardians got a home run from Jose because Jose looks like he is picking it back up again, which is great news. The Guardians, by the way, are winners of 6 of 8. They just took 2 or 3 from Philadelphia. They split with the Tigers last week, even though it was ugly, and they just took 2 in a row from the Tigers again. The Tigers just look like the air is out of that.
They're mailed in there.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is what. But that's what you got to do when the other team has the win taken out of their sails like that because of the trade deadline, like Cleveland a year ago. You got to beat them, and they did that. And Gavin Williams looked great on Tuesday. That's a great sign. We're going to get into more about that in the third segment as well. So things are looking up for Cleveland right now, not just in terms of what they did at the deadline, but also their own internal play. But yeah, again, like yesterday, we said. Lane Thomas should see a crap load of fastballs in front of Jose Ramirez. That's a great thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how much he's going to run, but that's an interesting aspect. You can at least, use some hit and run because Jose will put the ball in play sometimes to his own detriment, but that works. And again, like you said, this is not Luplow or Geyer. And you also said, you pointed out and this is a small sample, so we should be careful here, but you pointed out that he's about the same pace WRC plus wise as the rest of the right field group for Cleveland this year. If you go back, I know, again, this is an unfair arbitrary endpoint that anybody could do. He had a terrible April. I think his WRC plus in April against right-handers was like -3. It was horrible. He's been over 100 against right-handers May, June, and July. And I'm not saying that's who he is. I'm not saying that's what he's going to do going forward. And you can use small samples for anybody to make your argument. I totally get that. How much was the knee impacting him in April? I don't know. He's also had months in the past where he's been good against righties. So he's not unplayable against righties. Like you said, Geyer, Rayburn, Luplow were not playable against right-handers. They were not good. Thomas is no worse than what they've been rolling out in right field. For some guys, he's even better than that. And he's obviously much better against left-handers. I think he raises their floor. Is he a game-changing hitter? No, he's not a game-changing hitter, but he is a nice role player. He raises their floor. And that, again, I think you can only judge, just like the draft. You can only draft who's available.
Yeah.
We don't know what other deals they were involved in, I think all we can really say is look at the deals around them that happened and see should they have done more. And again, I would have loved a more stable upgrade in the rotation. I think they needed that. The Jack Flaherty, I think they were never in on Jack Flaherty. Maybe it was medicals. Maybe Detroit didn't want to deal in the division. Thyron Lorenzo that Detroit got for him. I think he is like a future first baseman mash. Right? He can't catch. He's been catching this year. I've seen him. I don't think he can catch. He's a big body. He might be like a Carlos Santana type, maybe with less athleticism. Everybody else that got traded, like the only hitter that got traded that would have been a bigger deal for them would have been Randy Arozarena, and we're pretty sure that they offered.
I will still say Isaac Paredes.
A similar package.
I was a big Paredes
Isaac
guy.
Paredes. They were never in on Isaac Paredes because he's a third baseman. He didn't fit. Yeah. We're pretty sure though they offered a similar deal to Tampa Bay for Arozarena.
Yeah, I think it's the same deal. It's very clear from the writing that Tina and Clemmy were guys like, okay, maybe you pick the third, but I will guarantee you right now that the deal they offered to Arozarena was Alex Clemmy as a center.
Right. Zach said they were dangling Clemmy to everybody, which tells you a lot. And again, it tells you a lot that they never played Tina this year, that Daniel Sheeman lapped him. I don't think Jose Tena is ever going to have a good enough approach to be a regular in the MLB.
Clemmy is it's like an AJ Preller pick, right? Like this was a guy with high ceiling, huge potential.
AJ Preller's a wild man.
But this is what Preller does, right? It's like they took a guy who has tradability traits. Like he is a ceiling. I mean, Clemmy is a ceiling god. Like, let's be honest. Like his ceiling is fantastic, but there's no way he's ever going to reach that. Like just because the
probability
size
is so low.
I think it's a 0. Like just because he's already to get him to have better command, they took off some of his velocity. He's already lost velocity in the minors just to make the command work. But on paper, you're saying, oh, he throws 100. The slider is a plus.
Metrically, the fastball is not super sexy. Maybe metrically the fastball. Fix that with him. The slider is the big thing. And man, again, I'll go back. Kikuchi changing hands. The Astros gave up an astronomical value for him. That guy just is not.
I would rather have Cobb at this cost than Kikuchi. Kikuchi's been terrible the last 2 months.
Yeah.
He's had an ERA over 6 in June and July. And I know we got to run to break, but I want to throw it's tinfoil hat time. Okay. So when we come, I know we got to run to break. So come back after the break. I won't have my tinfoil. My wife threw it away when she was cleaning the space the other day, but I'm going to give you my tinfoil Lane Thomas conspiracy. So join us in a second for that one.
All right, that roster moves and rotation situation all coming up. The trade deadline is over, but you can still be a trade master at SupplyHouse. You can get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled traders. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. They have an easy-to-use website that is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory. Over 200,000 parts from over 400 brands. That's more than the trade deadline was available. Get your order delivered right to your door. Fast shipping, coast to coast. If you need help with an order, you can get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business, and you talk to a real person every time. No text messaging. Pros in the skilled trades get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trade Master program. See, it doesn't even cost anything. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/T-M and order plumbing, HVAC, electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. Once again, Guardians off on Wednesday. Come back on Thursday with your SiriusXM app and listen to game 1 of the Baltimore series. Should be a fun one. It's going to be in Cleveland. It's after the trade deadline. It's still summer. 2 good teams. That is going to have an impact on possibly the first overall seed in the tiebreaker. So that should be interesting. Cleveland took 3 of 4 in Baltimore. I think if they take 1 this week against Baltimore, then they will have the tiebreaker. So big series. Listen to it on your SiriusXM app. All right, Jeff, let's hear the conspiracy theory on Lane Thomas.
Okay, so if you look at Lane Thomas, he's a great buy low candidate, and there's a few reasons for this. One, I mentioned the bad range in outfield and kind of some of that instinctual stuff, but for whatever reason, JT McGuire has been kind of a whisper for this year with Freeman, with Schneemann,
Fair.
really helping guys get the most out of it. Washington's developmental program is not great. Let's just put that on Front Street. They draft for ceiling, and the guys flame out at a really high rate. There's a reason why that team has been where they are. And when they won the World Series, it was buying free agents there. There was a lot of externals.
Even now, they've
Yeah.
brought in a lot of externals, which is why Lane Thomas became expendable.
Yes. So Lane Thomas wasn't necessarily getting the best coaching. Let's just put it that way. On top of it, the knee issue, he was a -3 defender a year ago. He's a -7 in less time this year, I think is what you told me off air. And I think the knee also affected that. I have had a knee injury. They're no fun. So you have that. Then I talked about on yesterday's show, the fact that his pull rate is down 10%. And he had 28 homers this year. I think he's got 8 this year. Again, the knee. But I think it's just getting him to get back to pulling the ball, because all of his home runs are to poolside. I should have wrote it down his name. I'm sorry. The listener pointed out I messed up poolside things yesterday. It's just the dyslexic thing. I can't tell you which way I have to turn a car wheel to go. I just know I turn it that way. My mind can't tell you functionally how that works. But yeah, it's like his power is to the pull side. So a 10% loss in pull side would explain his power droppage. So the conspiracy here is, if you are Cleveland, this is your guy for the next year and a half, and you're going to have him for a year and a half. It gives you more time for DeLauder to hopefully stay healthy and develop. That's the long-term right fielder. But unfortunately, health, people were also asking me about why we're lower on him. It's because he's had 5 straight years of missing multiple months. This goes back to college. But
availability is the most important ability.
So Thomas, if you get his defense up, you get his power back at the end of next year, guess what? Qualifying offer, and you get a draft pick. So I think there's some of this too, where that they could be viewing him as a multiple type of asset. So that is my conspiracy. I also want to point out, for as down as we were on Detroit, I believe with the win today, they won the season series. So
yeah. Also point out too with Lane Thomas that even let's say next year good things happen. Quanger, left fielder, and somebody sees a center. I mean, maybe Angel Martinez continues to take steps forward, and he really claims it for his own. And DeLauder's just hitting the crap out of the ball, and you have to call him up. This is what the Nationals did this year. They traded Lane Thomas because they have Dylan Cruz coming. They have James Wood. They've got other good outfielders. They determined that he was expendable. Get something for him now. Guardians could do the same thing a year from now. They could flip Lane Thomas into an asset they might need for a playoff run next year, because DeLauder has pushed him out. There's, like you said, there's multiple avenues here. Draft,
or if trade. If they're contending again next year, it's great. Then you have him. He helps your team. He stays in that role, and you get a bonus draft pick, which you can then, again,
also good. Yeah.
Because then they would have 3 they'd have 3 first rounders that year. And if Travis Bazzana then wins Rookie of the Year, guess what? 4 first rounders in 20.
Crazy.
So it sets up a situation where you could have 4 first rounders in 2026, right? If everything breaks right.
Maybe. I also point out this too. Last year, he was a flat 0 on run value. So run value is just how much value you're producing against each individual pitch on Baseball Savant. It's a great little tool. He was a flat 0, and he had a great year a year ago. It was a breakout year. So he was not anything special against fastballs last year. This year, his run value is +2, even though he's having a down year. And I'm going to point out again, I think he's going to get more fastballs in front of Jose Ramirez.
Perfect situation.
So I think that's a great situation for him. We'll see how that develops. I think like you said, there's a lot of untapped potential here. The next question is roster moves in the rotation. So Sam Hench's rehabbed on Wednesday night. Velocity was down a little bit. We'll see if he gets on the rehab stint. Maybe he was just trying to work himself back in. I don't know. He's going to come back. I think we all have to wonder what happens to the rotation. So Alex Cobb's going to get one more rehab start before he joins the rotation. Matt Boyd is doing his next rehab start in AAA. We'll see where that goes. I think the obvious thing is maybe both these guys go in the rotation in August. And to me, you move Carrasco to the bullpen. Curry goes back to AAA, and Cantillo goes back down. And I think this is where the Pedro, I don't know. People are saying get rid of Carrasco. We looked at the numbers. Carrasco one time through the order is better than Pedro Avila. I kind of wonder if there's going to be, I don't love this so much, but if there's more sentimental value with Carrasco staying around. But the numbers do say Carrasco first time through the order
better
is good. It's better than what Pedro Avila is offering you. Do you send Carrasco to the pen, and then you put these two guys in the rotation? And if Logan Allen does something that he forces his way back up, great. and we'll see what Cobb and Boyd offer. Like, again, I don't think this team has reached its final roster machination. There's still Allen, maybe. We still have Boyd and Cobb to look at. There's still possibly Andrew Walters. There's still possibly Kyle Manzardo. There are still guys that can impact this team. I don't think this is the end of the moves. It's just the end of the moves when it comes to trades. The final roster could still have some differences. Hopefully it's Andrew Walters. That would be great. I think it might exist with Carrasco in the pen, and then you get at least one of Allen or Cobb or Boyd to be your clear-cut 4 guy going into the playoffs.
Yeah, 100%. It's like, I think everything you've talked about, we discussed off air. I agree with that. And then I think the small machinations are, at some point, you call up Walters before September, right? Because he has to be on the roster by September 1st to be postseason eligible. Because in the postseason,
No. He just has to be in the organization, so he's already here.
Okay. So, there's a world where Carrasco doesn't make the postseason roster, but he's here for the rest of the year in that long role. And then I think you play it by ear with Noel. And people will be like, it's because you're a hater. No, it's because remember when Daniel Schneemann set the world on fire? Remember when Ty Freeman set the world on fire? This happens. So if he continues, great. Like, again, Oscar Gonzalez, he fell apart, but for that whole year, he was solid. He was a steadying for that year. He kept it going. If John Kenzie keeps it going, then he is essentially your DH. The rest of the going. If he does not, then that's I basically if there's a point where he starts to slip, that's when you see Manzardo again. And I had people asking about Manzardo and their handling of him. John Kenzie Noel and George Valera have no options at the end of this year. They have to be on next year's roster. They are the opposite of Ben Lively. They have no options. So you're getting your look at Noel. I don't think you're ever going to get a look at Valera. I think he's just off-season trade bait because, again, health has just
I've been saying that for a year, but it hasn't
stunted
happened.
His growth. I mean, who knows? Maybe there's a weird world where he gets let go this week when they have to make some roster moves because they see the writing on the wall and don't think there's trade value. I don't know. But I think Manzardo is the backup option to be a platoon with Fry. I think they're just going to keep trying guys. Maybe it is Valera's the next guy up. Who knows? But I think they're going to keep trying guys to try to figure out how to keep getting performance. And, I'll say, Noel's down from 50 to 47% Jace. That's positive. It's still 40, I believe, is the highest qualified player with it is with what's his name in Detroit, the terrible shortstop, Baez. Yeah. But yeah, so there's still some concerns there, but you ride the hot bat until it's not hot, and it worked, and it's worked this year. That approach has worked, and I'm fine with them continuing to do it. Just, unlucky for Manzardo, he didn't get hot when he first came up, unlike Schneemann and Noel and everyone else has.
And I still really believe in Manzardo. I still think
yes, I do too.
I still think there's a chance for him to impact this roster sometime in August, and I think they absolutely should consider that, depending on what the best version looks like. And again, throw out the remote possibility that Travis Bazzana, I mean, if it does happen, that's even better. So who knows? We'll see. I saw Travis Bazzana's first inning home game. It was suspended for rain, by the way. But he signed for an hour. They suspended the game. He stayed an hour after and signed autographs to the fans. It's pretty cool. Obviously, the dude gets it. Wish I had more to say other than he got hosed on a strikeout call. I was there. Didn't get to talk to him. Hopefully next homestand. But exciting stuff. All right. Tomorrow's show, Jeff, we will talk playoff rotation. We will talk also, because the Orioles are coming to town, can the Guardians now, I mean, they're already in the best record in the American League. Can they finish the season with the first round bye? I think they can. But does Cleveland absolutely need that to succeed in the playoffs? Does it help or hurt? We've seen teams in the past get hurt by the first round bye, or people claim it that hurts them. I don't know if it really does, but we're going to discuss the nuances of that tomorrow. And finally, tomorrow, I can't confirm because there's no game on Wednesday for the Guardians. I can confirm that we will talk draft stuff, some leftover draft stuff, how they use the bonus pool. We'll talk about which draft picks are going to make their debuts where. We'll talk about other prospect stuff as well, and releases from the minor leagues.
Thank you for joining us. Remember to rate and review, download daily. It helps. Thank you to all of our everydayers.